Hogan Gidley, thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. I appreciate you having me on.
All right, so we are inside 100 days now. First thing I want to get from you is just update status of the campaign.
We're in a great spot. I mean, listen, campaigns are about choices. And as people start to focus in on these two men who are at the top of the ticket, both the sitting president of the United States, Donald Trump, and the challenger, Joe Biden, you get to see vast differences across a wide range of issues. And the beauty of this particular campaign is that you don't have to guess. This isn't done in the abstract, meaning you don't have to guess what an economy would look like under Joe Biden. We saw it for 8 years. Michigan obviously felt it for 8 years, with 3.5 million jobs leaving America going to China because of Joe Biden's decisions. 60,000 manufacturing plants closed down, higher taxes, depressed wages. We saw all that. And when you compare and contrast that with President Trump, tax cuts, record high stock market, you saw hundreds of thousands of manufacturing jobs, 500,000 in fact coming back, also plants opening up and new factories relocating to America because it was finally profitable to do business in this country again. So more Americans had jobs under this administration than did the last one. And when you have more jobs than people to fill them, you know you're doing something right. So it was Donald Trump who took the reins of the economy. He rebuilt it once, and he'll do it again. And when this horrific unprecedented, unforeseen virus came in from China, he took bold, decisive leadership and action, and his moves saved lives in this country, and I think that's important to note. So when you look at them side by side and these choices begin to get in front of the American people, they're going to see the choice is clearly obvious that Donald Trump deserves another 4 years.
Logan, we know Michigan is an important battleground, but what makes this state different and critical to this election?
It's so interesting because Michigan has played, a central role in so many presidential elections. Every state has a unique electorate. Michigan is part of that, lifeblood of this country. You've got tough, hardworking Americans living there, wanting to make sure that their communities are safe, that their city streets aren't devolving into criminal activity. That lawlessness cannot reign. I mean, that's the mentality of folks in Michigan. They don't want to see other countries getting the breaks that they don't get. And that's what they had under Joe Biden. And this president changed things. I mean, he won a lot of the states, that blue wall, if you will. He busted right through it because so many on the left have taken for granted that people in Michigan and other states around your area just vote their way. But the fact is, this president is the one who stands up for the blue-collar worker. This president is the one who got them more money in their pockets by cutting taxes, and the deregulation allowed so many more jobs to come flowing back into this country, especially into a state like Michigan, hundreds of thousands of them, in fact. So it's one of those deals where Michigan becomes important because Michigan voters care and understand what's going on in this country. And they, it's funny because only in Washington, D.C. would it be unique that someone runs on a promise and then fulfills the promise. Donald Trump ran on the promise of getting the economy back together. He did. He ran on new jobs coming into this country. They did. And so, when you get elected in statewide office in Michigan or even in a local office there in the state, you gotta come through. Michiganders don't take kindly to those who promise things and don't follow through. This president made promises. He kept promises, and the people's lives are better off for it.
Hogan, we are averaging about 1,000 deaths a day due to COVID at this moment. With that and civil unrest dominating some headlines recently, are those the issues you believe this election hinges on?
Look, I think this election is going to come down to several things. I talked about the choices before, but it's going to come down, in my opinion, to COVID, the culture, and the economy. Thankfully, President Trump is on the right side of all three. When it relates to COVID, let's not forget, Donald Trump mentioned COVID in his State of the Union speech early at the beginning of the year. He's been focused on this for a long time. In fact, when he moved to shut down flights from China and from Europe, Joe Biden said that was the wrong thing to do. In fact, he called the president names, racist, xenophobic. Other leaders like Nancy Pelosi went out in Chinatown in California and said the president's not right. We're open for business here. She wasn't wearing a mask when she did that, by the way. And also governors like the one in New York, for example, also left things open much later than the rest of the country shut down. By his bold, decisive action, we saved countless lives. In fact, some of the models early on, 2.2 million people were expected to die in this country without doing anything. But this president's moves saved those lives. But also, as far as the culture is concerned, you're seeing these streets devolve into some type of hellscape that, quite frankly, is unacceptable to a vast majority of the American people. For the first time, a Republican received endorsements from police unions because they understand that Donald Trump wants to protect the American families, wants to allow law enforcement to do their job. Joe Biden doesn't. When you take a look, again, you don't have to guess what would happen. You've seen the lawlessness in the streets. You've seen the riots. You've seen the looting. You've seen fires set to churches and to businesses. I mean, this is completely unacceptable. And when Joe Biden pops out of his hidey hole, he points out, hey, I think it absolutely was his quote. Yes, absolutely. We should redirect funds away from the police. And for those in the media trying to twist those words and say redirect doesn't mean defund, let me ask you, I don't know what you make in a year, but if it's okay, I'll just redirect some of the money out of your next paycheck into my bank account. That's defunding. Everyone knows what that means. So the difference is clear here. And when you look at the economy, I mentioned all the ways the president's been better on the economy too. So make no mistake about it. Your job isn't safe. Your family isn't safe. And your American way of life is not safe with Joe Biden. He's waging war on all three with his policy.
We're seeing some polling of likely voters here in Michigan starting to pop up, showing Vice President Biden leading outside of that margin of error. So I want to get your take on what are the campaign's indicators of success at this moment. And then come November, when the dust settles, mail-in ballots in this unprecedented pandemic might make the results come in a little bit later. So when the dust settles, will the president accept and adhere to the results of the election?
Well, listen, this is an interesting question because, of course, if the election is free and fair, he will accept the results. But if the election's free and fair, we, of course, expect this president to be reelected. It's the Democrats who refused to accept the results of the 2016 election. Hillary Clinton just the other day was pointing out that she had actually won the White House. You have the Democrats pointing to the state of Georgia, for example. Stacey Abrams, they say, is the duly elected governor as opposed to Governor Kemp. It's the Democrats who have a track record of not abiding by the results of an election. But you're also asking this president to promise to accept the results of an election that quite possibly, if the Democrats get their way, could be extremely tainted. When you're talking about universal mail-in voting, which is what the Democrats want to do, they want to upend the entire voting system in just 4 months. There's no way that can be done. Let's not forget, we're still trying to figure out who won some of the districts for congressional seats in the state of New York. We have hundreds of thousands of votes in California that haven't been counted for their recent election. And who could forget the debacle in Iowa? Democrats had a simple caucus in the state of Iowa. And I know that state very well. I've been there many times for presidential campaigns. They couldn't get the app to work. I still don't think we know who won the Iowa caucuses on the Democrat side. So you can't ask anyone to adhere to a system that could be fatally flawed on the front end. We just don't know where that goes yet. So the fact is, we want every single vote to count. We want every single vote to matter. We want more people to be involved in the process of voting. But it has to be done in a free, fair way. Otherwise, we're going to see weeks and weeks and weeks of not knowing the outcome because of the lawsuits and all the nonsense. It's got to be done in a way that protects every single citizen's vote. That's what's important to us here.
All right, Hogan Gidley, appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much.